On its surface, the question seems simple enough. Why shouldn't a consenting adult be allowed to decide how and when to die, if death is imminent and living is filled with pain and suffering? It may sound simple, but the moment you crack open that lid, a myriad of ethical, practical, legal, medical, and religious implications fly out of Pandora's box. Physician-assisted suicide is currently legal in 9 U.S. states plus Washington, D.C., and another 14 states are debating it. In California, it's been legal under the End-of-Life Options Act since 2015, but recent changes to that law are being challenged in court. Our guests today are behind that lawsuit. We're joined by Dr. Leslee Chochrane, the Executive Medical Director at Hospice of the Valleys in Southern California. He's one plaintiff, along with the association he's a member of called Christian Medical and Dental Associations, or CMDA. And we have with us legal counsel for the case, Christy Hirsch. She is with Alliance Defending Freedom. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
So the contention in your lawsuit says that under the old law, no physicians were compelled to participate in assisted suicide, but the amendment changes that and some other things. Christy, explain to us how. What are the changes?
Sure. Well, what the state has done is really redefine what it means to participate. And so what they've done is take these ordinary protocols that a doctor might engage in and really corrupted them into life-ending work. So things like diagnosing a terminal illness, providing some sort of medical prognosis, a life expectancy, or documenting a patient's request for assisted suicide, all of these things become part and parcel of the referral that ultimately leads to a patient's death.
And what happens to them if they refuse?
Well, they face all sorts of consequences, up to loss of their license. So they really are here having to decide between abiding by their personal religious convictions and their medical ethics or continuing on in the practice of medicine.
So, Dr. Chochrane, you are a full-time hospice physician, so you're dealing with patients at the end of life all of the time. What are your main concerns? I guess specifically how this will change the dynamic that you have with your patients. Why is this such a big problem for you?
Well, when patients are in a crisis, as you might imagine, when they've been told that they may be facing the end of their life, there's a variety of concerns that are swirling through their mind. And one of the concerns has never been heretofore that I need to be worried that my doctor is going to materially participate in me, ending my life. So doctors like myself take the Hippocratic Oath to uphold life and protect life. And now with the change in the law, the new requirement would be that if a patient, even if I felt that they were in a state, of distress, would be able to require me to document their request for medications they would use to end their life and to forward that documentation to another doctor. And so I'm being forced and co-opted into recommending and participating in something that I strongly oppose.
And how did you feel when this law was passed? I know it came into effect in January.
Well, it's a tremendous disservice to patients. And the reason why I say that is the vast majority of patients are concerned that hospice care may seek to hasten their death. They're already concerned, and it's not uncommon for patients to talk about, I wish this could all be over with, but never presuming that that means that the doctor would be participating in them ending their lives. So I've been free to talk to patients very openly and directly about all of the things that we can do to guarantee that we can control their pain and alleviate their suffering. I've never been forced to participate in a patient taking their life, and I won't be able to do that. And this new law is basically placing me in the position of choosing to do the right thing and violating the law.
And I know from the lawsuit, one of the other areas of big concern is that they shortened the wait time. As I understand it, a patient has to request twice to be assisted in their suicide, and the waiting period used to be 15 days. Now it's 48 hours. Why is that a particular concern?
Well, if you've ever been around someone who is sick, you would understand how dramatically their condition can change in a short period of time. And frequently when I'm talking to patients, they're in uncontrolled pain, which it only takes a matter of a few days or sometimes a week to completely turn that around. So patients should never be making life-ending decisions in a state of distress like they would be if their pain is not well controlled. Unfortunately, we don't have good access to excellent pain management in the state of California. People are forced to wait. They're frequently told to wait 6 or 8 weeks to see a pain specialist. So you can understand how they may feel hopeless unnecessarily.
Yeah, I understand a lot of members of the Christian Medical and Dental Associations would rather quit their jobs or leave the state if this law is imposed upon them. What are they saying to you as counsel about the urgency of this lawsuit?
Well, you hit on a great point. They're having to decide between their livelihood and abiding by the law, and they should never be put to that choice.
Is that your opinion, Dr. Chochrane?
Yes, absolutely. I think if you take a doctor who has dedicated their life to protecting life, they've dedicated their life's work to protecting life, and now you're told that one of the conditions of your license in the state of California is you have to participate in physician-assisted suicide. I know a number of doctors, if they're forced to make that choice, would say, I can't practice. And it's not just Christian Medical and Dental Association. The American Medical Association strongly opposes physician-assisted suicide. The California Medical Association was opposed to this regulation requiring doctors to participate. The California Hospital Association, none of those are religious organizations. This is a matter of the right of conscience of healthcare providers and not being forced to violate their conscience and their professional ethics.
Who is pushing it then, and why?
Well, we could speculate on that. It's certainly not, in my experience, it's certainly not the patients that I see as a doctor. I've taken care of thousands of terminally ill patients, and they are not pushing this. I can tell you that their concern is that their pain and their symptoms are controlled. And that is not their biggest concern in most cases is, please don't do something to hasten my death. You talk about an 80-year-old person who's already sick and frail and weak, and now to have them be pressured, by outside forces, maybe other family members that might feel it would be better for them to take this course of action, even though that's not the course of action that they would want. I just see an incredible problem, and the American Medical Association rightly identified that doctors participating in assisted suicide is fundamentally in direct opposition to their role as healers, and it would be difficult to regulate and control. Who is going to watch over those doctors, and who's going to know that those doctors aren't being influenced? The system is very weak as far as the safeguards. The patients used to have to sign a piece of paper called an affidavit saying that they were taking the medication under their own free will. And even that very meager protection has been removed in this latest update. Not to mention the fact, once again, in 2 days, someone could be in severe pain and they could make a request that they would regret had they had a chance to have their pain and symptoms under control.
And if I might add, I think assisted suicide really creates a culture in which life is seen as dispensable if it costs too much to treat. Sometimes people feel pressured, or may in fact be pressured, to end their life prematurely because they don't want to be a burden on their family.
And what are you seeing, Christy, in terms of, there's a slippery slope argument. California had one law and maybe people were comfortable with it, but then an amendment comes in and it makes it, it changes the situation, forces physicians to participate, makes it easier to make the request. Other states are looking.
Exactly, and it is a slippery slope. This can quickly become a duty to die, and we've seen that in Europe. It's progressed to a euthanasia stage, and so that's why we want to be so careful about affirming life in this country and making sure all the while that we don't corrupt the practice of medicine as we do so.
The thing that we should be focused on is enabling physicians to provide the care that patients need at the end of life. There's certainly no legitimate medical reason to help someone commit suicide in order to get pain relief. That is a tragedy. I can tell you from personal experience dealing with thousands of patients, it is not necessary to help your patients commit suicide to control their pain and suffering.
Has this request been made of you before?
Yes, it has. And I've always been able to approach that by following, my professional judgment and my medical ethics and telling patients, I can address all of your concerns. I can address your worried that you're going to be in pain, that you're going to have suffering, that you're not going to be able to control or manage your symptoms. And patients are very reassured by that conversation. On the other hand, there are some patients that are not able to completely understand the whole process. They're overwhelmed, they're in distress. And I, as a physician, am very worried about who's going to safeguard those people to be sure they're not being ushered through this process and rushed through this process that could happen in 48 hours by other family members that may, in their opinion, this may be the right thing to do, but it may not be what that patient wanted.
All right. Thank you both so much for joining us today. It's a very important issue.
Thank you for having us.
Be sure to watch the entire episode, now available exclusively at epochtv.com, a new completely censorship-free premium subscription platform, brought to you by the Epoch Times. See you there.